It is a mentality that shuns excuses and focuses on what's at stake. A mindset that resolves within itself that you must totally empty yourself to experience victory. A memory that remembers that who and what you are playing for is bigger than you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fourth Quarter Christianity Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Webster, and I'm so thankful that you have taken the time to tune in to this episode today. Before we jump into the episode, I just want to go ahead and throw out some quick announcements. First, go ahead and follow us on Instagram. The Instagram page is now up and live. Follow us at fourth_quarter_Christianity. So be sure to do that. And also, we are making progress with the webpage. So we're trying to do our due diligence with that to make sure that is up and running in the near future. But nevertheless, we have a good friend of mine on the show today, and Ron Sanders. He has been a mentor of mine, and I am looking forward to this episode today. We talk about the critical years, the years between adolescenthood to adulthood, and just the various challenges that we face in between that period. And we talk about some things that are very prevalent now. And so I just hope that you gain much insight from this episode. And don't forget to leave a review, share this episode with others, and also let me know if the things that we talk about has been beneficial to you. Now we'll get right into the episode with Ron. Brother Ron, it's good to have you on the show today, man. How are you?
Be here. Bless my brother. Bless.
Do you remember that first conversation we had?
Yes, we were in the, and I refer to it as the wilderness of Butler, Alabama. Yes, I believe I asked you who's better, Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant.
Yes,
I think you responded to Kobe Bryant. Me being an Illinois boy, MJ fanatic, that didn't sit well with me. I'm like, really? Let's talk. We got to talk.
So I knew then it was going to be a start of a great friendship, huh?
Yes, sir.
Well, man, I have thoroughly enjoyed our friendship over the years. It's been almost 7 years now since we first met each other, and of course, you are instrumental in my going to the Memphis School of Preaching. Ultimately, me meeting my wife, and I mean, you have blessed my life tremendously, blessed my family tremendously, just through the works that you've done over the years. Coming down to Butler, as you call it, the wilderness. You definitely got to get out of that place eventually, but I'm thankful that you decided to come. You blessed more than my life. Of course, you've blessed our good friend and sister Jatara. So again, man, I'm just so thankful for you. I'm glad to have you on the show today to be able to pick your brain a little bit. And hopefully we can, this episode will be a blessing to the lives of all of those who listen. So,
hey, man, honored to be here. And likewise, you and your family have been a great blessing to me and my family. Likewise.
Well, man, I just want to make space right now for you to just introduce yourself so that the audience can have a chance to know you better.
Okay. I am Ronald Sanders Jr. I currently serve as the minister at the Northeast Church of Christ in East Point, Michigan. Been here a little over 2 years. I'm just so thankful to be here to preach the word of God. Married to Ashley. Ashley and I, we have 4 children, expecting a 5th, our little girl, very much excited. Played football in high school, ran some track in high school, as you can tell. Chicago Bears fan, that's my team. I'm a diehard. It's been tough here lately, but there's still some hope, some light at the end of the tunnel. Other than that, listen, I'm just thankful to be doing what I'm doing right now, man.
Well, that's great, man. Obviously, everyone knows that you are an optimistic brother just from that introduction. A man who still believes there is hope for the Chicago Bears.
You have to.
That's
man.
fantastic.
Only way to go from where we are is up, man.
Hey, I respect it. Well, since you introduced
Ah,
football, since you introduced football, I think that it's only right for us to go ahead and talk about football. Let's jump into the conversation. Dr. Jane Dobson, he coined or said that the transition from adolescence to adulthood is one of monumental importance, but often undermined and met with little to no preparation at all. In fact, he even said that the years between 16 and 26 is known as the critical decade, in his opinion. Some of the most dramatic and permanent changes in life usually occur. Critical decisions, which we're going to get in later, about marriage, occupation, drugs, sex, gangs, all of those things that sort of bombard the emerging adult community. And so, like certain quarterbacks who struggle to recognize what the defense is showing and properly adjusting, emerging adults struggle to adjust to the physical, emotional, and mental changes presented to them in adulthood. And so I just want to ask you a question. I mean, when we think about this idea of calling an audible and, young adults or emerging adults preparing to walk across that bridge, if you will, into adulthood, and one of the most primary things that they struggle with is that of self-love. How important is self-love, and how can young people express and show love to themselves without being conceited?
the way, excuse me, that one can have self-love for themselves is to have, good self-esteem. So that's how you feel about yourself. That's the ability to know yourself, your self-worth. There's one artist I listen to. His name is McCrae, and he said something several times in a lot of his songs. He says, you know what, if you live for people's acceptance, you'll die from their rejection. And so what I take away from that is judging our self-worth and our self-esteem should not be based, solely off of how others see us, but I'd say rather how God sees us. I think that'll help us with our self-esteem. I think about Psalm 139, 13 and 14. David would write there that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. So in the eyes of a holy God, I'm special. And I think emerging adults should keep that at the forefront of their minds because, there are some who struggle with self-esteem. And to fill that void or to fill that gap, they'll actually try to tear down the esteem of someone else. And if you don't have good self-esteem of self or knowledge of self, you can fall victim to it. I know several people who are in relationships, and they have asked, who am I to deserve love? Think about that question. Who am I to deserve love? Well, why would they ask that question in the first place? A lack of love for self. You could go on and tell this person about how great their characteristics are, how wonderful of a person they are, but if they don't believe that, it doesn't matter. So again, I'd say it's very important. It's vital, needed for success.
Right. I thought about something when you alluded to passages of scripture. I think about where Jesus tells us to love our neighbors as ourselves. Do you think that, and this is just from my perspective, but do you believe that self-love is necessary in order to love someone else? Because if I don't necessarily love myself, how can I love my neighbor as myself?
Absolutely. I'll go a step further, Daniel. You think about anyone who is a young man seeking to be a husband someday. Think about the role that Paul reveals the husband plays. Okay. And while I do believe there is some application for the wife, of course, again, Paul is speaking to the husband. Ephesians 5:28, he says there, so then a husband ought to do what? He ought to love his wife as his own body. So again, self-love, it has to be present. How do you extend something to someone that you do not have for yourself?
Right.
So very important, very important.
Well, it makes sense, man, because, and at least for me, when coming out of high school, especially getting ready to go into college, one of the main things I was concerned with was my muscles, man. Like I had to have muscles like guys I saw in college, right?
Yeah.
I mean, as an Alabama fan, you see guys who are just, they look like grown men at 19, 18 years old. And the one thing I wanted was that 18-inch neck. Like I wanted an 18-inch neck so bad.
The Keo spikes, huh?
Exactly. And so, when you think about this idea of key attitudes that young people should strive to attain in life, first of all, like how important is attitude when it comes to dealing with others, and what are some of those key attitudes that young people should have or should obtain in life?
Attitude is vital. Attitude, it helps to shape your perspective in life, your outlook in life. So it's very important. What are some attitudes that young people could strive for? Given today's social climate, I'd start with saying an attitude of openness. Let me explain what I mean by an attitude of openness. I'm not saying open oneself up to all of the philosophy and different thoughts and practices of the world, but rather being able to be open to good, sound information from those who have gone on before us. I was reading a book a while ago. It's entitled 10 Things That Great Dads Do by Rick Johnson. And it was a quote in there that I found very profound. He mentioned how experience is a very great teacher. However, if you are wise enough to accept good secondhand information, you'll find the tuition is much cheaper. I mean, man, I had to grab the highlight. I said, "Woo!" And I started highlighting it. And I said, "Oh yes, that is right. We don't have everything figured out, so we have to be wise enough to accept some of that good information from those who have gone on before us. Like, you don't have to go to prison to find out firsthand that that's not somewhere that you want to be. You simply take the time maybe to listen to someone who's been incarcerated or read some articles and things like that. So again, I'd say an attitude of openness, honesty. I'd say an attitude of fortitude, having that will to continue. I'm looking at what you got hanging behind you. It's not whether you get knocked down, it's whether you get back up. Life is going to throw challenges at you. But having that attitude, that determination that says, listen, I will get back up. I can stand. I will continue to fall forward if I do fall. So having an attitude of fortitude. And then I'd also add, and I know there's several attitudes, but also an attitude of integrity. Integrity is all about doing the right thing, even when the spotlight is not on you. It's easy to play the part when the camera's on you or the spotlight is on you, but to have that determination to do what's right. And I think about Jacob being in Potiphar's house, the determination that he showed to do what was right. You think about all of the things that could have been running through his mind, being hated by his brothers so much they wouldn't even speak peaceably to him, selling him into slavery. So he could have said those things. Listen, it's, times are hard. Potiphar's not here. He won't even know. Surely I could get away with this, but he remembered something. God's eyes, were always on him. And he said he couldn't sin against God. He couldn't do such a thing. So I think those three attitudes are helpful to the success of the emerging adult.
Absolutely. I've always taken this perspective or this point of view when considering attitudes. To me, attitudes is how you respond to situations in life. You can control what attitude you have, and being a part of being a responsible person is learning how to respond in certain situations. But when we consider this idea of balance, right? So you're going to come into contact with people who don't necessarily think the same way you think. How important is balance, and why should or how can young people attain balance in life?
Really, when you look at adult life, you will find that adult life, in many ways, it demands balance if you're going to be successful. I was talking to my wife about how free it seemed as a younger man. When you had a parent to break down your day for you. Here's when you're going to wake up. Here's when you're going to go to bed. Here's what you're going to eat. It's like as you emerge into adulthood, like, wow, I have to be tedious. I am, have to be responsible for all of these things. So again, when you think about adult life in and of itself, it demands balance if you're going to be successful. But As far as dealing with others and some of their differing opinions and, having those conversations with them, one thing that I try to do, Daniel, to be honest with you, is to find what's called the truth value in a statement. It doesn't necessarily make a conflicting view an absolute, but find some of the truth that is made in a statement to reconcile it with some absolute. That's the best thing that I try to do, because I'm telling you, I hear a lot of conflicting views. Have heard them, and I know today's young people are hearing a lot of.
Right. If you're not careful, if you cut out that person who has a different opinion than you do, in my perspective, you may have just shut yourself out from being able to know your position more perfectly, being able to learn a different perspective that can ultimately help you even mold and shape or even change your position. And so I don't think that's the time to just begin an argument or get defensive with people. But again, you're just trying to find out, listen, how can I find, where's the common ground? Once I find it, we stand together. Okay. Then now that we found the common ground, the conversation is just that much easier to begin and talk about, these are the things we disagree. Here's why. One of the primary reasons why young people lack self-esteem is because they are too busy trying to be original. And their sense of originality is so different from the Renaissance sense of originality. Young people idea of originality today is, I got to say something that no one else said. I got to put out this book or this material that no one else have put out, come up with this new idea or thought that no one else have ever thought about. Well, the chances of that they're slim to none.
It's not happening. It's hard to have an original thought.
Exactly. And I mean, the guy was like, we learned that from school, right? The guy was like, the guy said, the idea of being original doesn't mean that you're not going to have the same thought as someone else. It doesn't even mean that you can't take bits and pieces of information from someone else. It just means that the way you take past information and apply it to present day situations is your originality. One question that comes to mind is how can emerging adult Christians live out their faith amid a society who hates Christianity?
There was a movie that came out, I want to say back in the early 90s. It's entitled Higher Learning. I believe we watched it together. I had you come over. I said, hey, I want to sit you down and I want you all to watch the movie. And the one message that I always take from that movie is, you go to college or, some secondary education without having knowledge of who you truly are, you're going to be all over the place. So I'd say, before even making it to that point in life, understand where you are in your faith. Poke at your faith, prod your faith, make sure it's genuine. As a matter of fact, Paul calls us to do that. Examine yourself, whether you be in the faith, 2 Corinthians 13:5. So poke at it, prod it to see what your faith is, where it is, okay? Because when you get to college, somebody's going to try to pull you away from the faith. As far as living out that faith in a society that hates it, how do you do that? My answer, my approach to that is simple. I would hope the way you live it out under any other circumstance, and that just simply being faithfully. Your faith should not be determined by the circumstances in which you're living. So I think about Daniel, for instance. You think about him being taken away from his home. So now he didn't willingly leave to go study at a higher level, taken from his home, given another name, but he didn't forget who he was, right? And then you think about what was happening to him while he was in captivity. You have these presidents, you have these counselors, you have these princes of the land coming together. We could compare that to all of Congress and all of the judges and everybody coming together to conspire against one who is faithful to God. And so they said to themselves, listen, we can't find any fault with this individual, but if we're going to find a fault with him, we have to poke at the law that his God has given. Okay? Right. So we're going to set up a law that we know he's not going to disobey, that we might punish him. We don't find where Daniel was fretting, do we?
Nope.
Oh, pulling out his hair. I don't know what I'm going to do. Daniel could simply say, I'm going to do what I've always done. I'm going to remain faithful to God. Right. And That would be my advice to emerging adults. By and large, as you read the narrative of the Bible, I can't really drop down into too many places in history where the world, the masses, generally loved the law of God. You're not going to find it. You see what I'm saying? So,
Exactly.
Again, my answer would be faithful. It should be the same regardless of the circumstance.
Something so simple as that is often forgotten, right? It's like, okay, I know how I act at church. I know what mom and dad expect of me at home, but this world that I'm about to go into hates it, right? They hate Christianity. They hate the religion of my parents. They hate the religion into which I was brought up. And so it's like, well, what do I do from here? Well, you keep doing what you were doing, right? I mean, you stay grounded. One thing that my mom always taught me was, hey, never forget where you come from. So, I mean, how possible for young Christians to have fun in life? And if so, what are some examples of fun activities they can enjoy?
We have this warped definition of fun. So first we need to define fun. Right. Okay, fun the way the world defines it in many cases, if you think about it, it's drinking, okay, it's smoking, it's doing drugs, it's being loose, engaging in fornication. For some, they go out and commit acts of violence, all in the name of fun. Okay, and of course, being Christians, we're called to live godly lives, so we can't partake in any of those things. But outside of that, there's plenty to do. If you really think about it, there's plenty to do. I can go bowling. You can go bowling just like anyone else. I can go to the movies. You can go to the movies just like anyone else. I can go out to eat. You can go out to eat just like anyone else. I can travel. You can travel like anyone else. So, I mean, I can keep going down the list, and you'll find there are a lot of things that we can engage in that we can deem clean fun. Okay, the problem is it seems that people just focus on those four things, the four before mentioned: drugs, drinking, the various fornication, and committing crime.
Right.
Why can't you do that? Well, we shouldn't be doing those things. Daniel, in the past, we've had fun just getting a group of friends over and talking.
Yep.
That can be fun. So again, to answer the question, it's plenty to do, man, and to have fun without, toting that line.
Right.
Yes.
I consider the intertestamental period, right, where the Greeks, they were in power at this particular time, and the Greeks had brought the games to the Israelites, really. And many of the Israelites began to adopt, certain styles of the game. And I know Rome, when they came into power, adopted a lot of the Greek games, but Israel began to adopt some of those games and play among themselves. And I know from reading that a lot of those Israelites who consider themselves super holy, thought it was an abomination for them to play the Greek games, right? It was interesting to note this: the kids love to play the games. They wanted to imitate the Greeks. They wanted to go out and maybe kick a ball or wrestle, which is one of the oldest sports known to man. They wanted to engage in those things, and I wanted to know what's sinful about it, right? And I think you stated this a long time ago, and I never forgot this. Sin is not the transgression of man's opinion, right? It's the transgression of God's law.
Could I add something to what you said, Daniel? If you don't mind?
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
In reference to the Orlando Magic player kind of being forced to, give an answer as to why he didn't wear the BLM shirt, and I know that's big. There's a lot of people that oppose it, and and I can say, we're speaking here, I'm not behind the organization. Do I agree in the statement of sentiment? Absolutely, but we're Christians, and we're called to live by a higher standard. And so, just speaking in line of fun, something we did here in the city of Detroit, there were a lot of people protesting and marching. We gathered up church members. Okay, now we did something to make sure we were not mixed in with everybody else. Like personally, I wore bright yellow, because I wanted everybody to know I am not a part of this movement. And we actually had fun going down, talking to the people and praying with the people, telling them about the good news.
Right.
And I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think we did something similar to you guys here in Nebraska, and we went downtown. Of course, we didn't wear any political statements on our shirts or have any political statements on our posters, but simply just trying to incite the fear of God into people, and
Right.
trying to, tell people that the ultimate thing, the ultimate remedy to this problem is Jesus, right? I mean, you could
That's
change
right.
a piece of legislation all you want, but a piece of
That's right.
legislation isn't going to change hearts. So
Right. That's
definitely
right.
want to try to convict the hearts of men and women in the world. And many of
Right.
them consider it hard to have fun because of that. But not only that, they consider it hard to have fun because of the rules of Christianity. And so when we think about the rules of Christianity, right? I guess the next question that comes to my
Yes.
mind, is this: like, is
Yeah.
there a proper way young people should view rules in life, considering again their religion, and also just various factors that may come into it, whether it's on the job or in
Right.
society or something
Right.
like that.
It is a rebellious viewpoint that says, rules are only put in place to be broken. That's
Yeah,
not the truth of the matter. I mean, you really consider why rules are placed where they are to begin with. They are placed really for protection. That's the proper way to view it. I couldn't help but think about football when we were talking about rules. Okay,
right.
I couldn't help but think about it. There is a reason you can no longer pick up a person and suplex them on their neck. There is a reason a defender cannot hit a wide receiver without him first turning his head and taking a step. There is a reason a defender no longer can launch at the knees of a quarterback. Again, those rules are put in place to protect individuals. Okay, so in reference to sports, of course, the people who came up with these rules, they looked at what was happening in the game before those rules were put in place. But in reference to God and his law, it's not like he forgot to put these things in the rule book. He is the creator of life.
Right.
Therefore, he knows exactly what we need to sustain that life and to live happy and blessed lives. So it wasn't as if he had to go back and say, I forgot to mention this rule. Here, let me amend it. No, there are certain rules that he put in place to protect us, to keep us holy, and also, I'll say, to keep us happy.
Right.
So rules should be looked at as that which is put in place to protect us. And you also have to consider what happens. Let's just say if there are no rules. A lot of people love that. There should be no rules. Have we seen what that looks like? A society that has no restrictions, no rules. I'd advise anyone to turn over to the book of Judges and let's just read how that experiment went. Everyone did that which was right in their own eyes. I'd call that the judge-free zone.
Mm-hmm.
How did it work out for them? By the time you leave chapter 1 and get into chapter 2, it's already a generation. And I always ask this question: how does this generation arrive? They have no knowledge of God. So again, you take away rules, you take away structure. Everybody does what they want to do. That leads to anarchy. We call that.
Mm-hmm.
And what follows anarchy? A lot of people don't understand what follows anarchy is dictatorship. You really want to talk about being restricted and having certain liberties taken away? That is the progression of anarchy. It's going to lead to dictatorship because things ultimately are going to get so bad that people will willingly give up freedoms to the person that comes along and says, I can fix that for you. Just if you'll allow me. Put me in this position of power, and I can change all of this. And because things are so depraved, situations are so bad, guess what the people generally say?
Right.
Okay, I'll give it to you. Now that's restriction.
Right.
So again, rules are put in place. I'm sorry to ramble, but rules are put in place, man, for our protection. That's the problem.
Right, man. I never considered that idea of without rules, then it leads to anarchy, and then the progression from
Yeah.
when I consider the government, like we want that security and protection, but we have to give up certain liberties in order to receive that security and protection. It's not to say all of your liberties, but I mean you have to compromise somewhere if you want that protection, and obviously some rules got to be in place. So coming to a green light, hey, stop. Right. I mean, if you don't stop, you're liable to injure yourself or injure someone else. So again, it's all about perspective. I can look at rules as this sort of tedious list of things that is restricting me from having fun, or I can look at rules as a benefit to my health and enabling me to have safe fun. I think that having rules in place, this sort of structure in place, I think it forces the individual who's playing according to the rules or being governed by those rules to be more creative, right? I mean, I just think it challenges us to be more creative. I mean, what do you think about that? Again, that's just my opinion, but what do you think about that?
I can agree with that. Yeah, to an extent. But you think about that too. I'm thinking about what Paul would write as far as striving for those masteries. Okay,
Mhm.
how are we going to get there? Is it by works of merit? Uh, no, but following those things that have been put in place. I mean, so
Right.
balancing act there. Talking about balance earlier.
Right, right, absolutely. So I mean, we're talking about calling an audible, right? And we know that quarterbacks they call audibles because of different schemes and things they think that the defense is showing them at the time. Oh, majority of the time is because of a blitz, and the defense may show a blitz and they may come out of that blitz, or sometimes they show a blitz and the quarterback has no idea who's blitzing, like which angle they're going to take, or which person is coming at the time. And so there's a lot of things that the quarterback is having to decide in a split second. I just want to flip to another subject, really, because there are a lot of things that emerging adults face, and I know we're not going to be able to cover every single thing they face, but at least we can cover some of the primary things that emerging adults, sort of struggle with. And one of those primary things that they struggle with is dating and courtship. Okay, and so as you stated before, when talking about fun, the first thing you want to do is define fun. So I guess the first thing we want to do when talking about dating and courtship is to define dating and courtship. I mean, what is the difference between dating and courtship, and is there a process young people should follow when choosing to show interest in someone?
It's over the years that has become increasingly difficult to answer because those terminologies have continued to evolve. Um, but given where we are today, today's landscape, I'd say the dating definition, it more so speaks to the social outing, going out and having fun with an individual versus the courtship or the courting of an individual is all about wooing someone with limited intimacy and those intentions being known up front. So I'd say there's a certain purity and honesty um, to courting. I'm not saying that cannot be present in dating, but more so that is present. You can be today, it's considered cool, let's say, for a young man to be dating 6 women at the same time, right? Like, oh yeah, you're dating 6, but are your intentions pure? Are the motives pure? With courting, some calculations have already been done. Some things have been determined in order to get that person to the point where they say, you know what, I'd like to try to progress down this path with this individual. So best I can, that's how I would say the two differ, the courting versus dating. Uh, some things that a young person should ask or what they should look for if they're choosing to show interest in someone. Well, I'd start by saying discriminate. What do I mean by discriminate? I'm not saying discriminate by race or anything like that, but understand, first of all, everybody doesn't deserve it. One thing I've seen, especially with a lot of young adults here, they're always pulled in multiple directions based off of who's liking them or who's choosing to show interest at the time. I say, hey, well, hold on. Why are you so ready to give this part of yourself to this individual? This part of you, this part of your heart, this part of your mind, this is to be reserved only for God. And later on, the person you want to spend the rest of your life. You can't continue giving that part, that piece, to everyone else. So I'd really say, Daniel, I ask some questions when choosing to show someone. First of all, and it sounds cliche, but I mean this. Young adults, young Christian adults, emerging adults should really understand the importance of wanting a significant other who's in the Lord, someone that's faithful. Okay, I'm not saying that you cannot have a successful relationship by trying to be with someone who's outside the body of Christ, but I would just say this: there bound to be a number of problems on top of the regular problems that come along with any kind of courting or dating relationship in the first place. So understand the importance of trying to be with someone who is faithful in the Lord's body, because let me put it to you this way. You're either helping me get to heaven or you helping me get to hell. Sometimes we think it's that happy medium. So that's a question that I had to ask. Are you going to help me get to heaven? You're going to help me get to hell. What are your goals? How are we going to reach those goals? A big one, too, to ask, if we're going to plan to say yes to one another, are you going to say yes to my strengths and also my weaknesses? You don't hear people talk like that. You hear people say things like, oh, this person is perfect. Let me ask you, Daniel, you ever met the perfect person?
No, sir.
Absolutely not. So, having thorough knowledge, I'd say, of a person's strengths and also weaknesses. And of course, there's some other things. I want to turn it into a courting seminar. But those are vitally important. Those are some good questions that I think one could ask when choosing to show interest in someone. And like I said, just being discriminatory in choosing, who they're going to go through the process with.
Right. And a lot of those things make sense to me, honestly, because obviously, we live in a world today that says, don't judge me. But we make judgments every day, right? We make judgments when we come to a stop sign, whether we are going to stay there for the rest of the day or whether we're going to go. We make judgments, quick decisions and judgments based on when we're driving on the highway and someone's about to cut us off, right? I've said something about some people that, I wouldn't repeat now, but again, we make judgments every day that are necessary in life. And one of those things that I thought about while you were speaking, when young people are obviously, feelings are involved when you're trying to express that you like someone. Young
Yes.
people, especially, I've heard it from the female side all the time, right? It's like, man, I'm a girl and I feel like guys should show that they're interested in me and not the other way around, right? Like, guys are to propose to the girl doesn't propose to the guy. And so it's like nowadays it's almost difficult, really difficult for females to show that they like a guy because of this traditional vantage point or viewpoint of guys coming up and talking to girls. And again, I'm not suggesting that it should be the other way around or maybe it should change, but I am suggesting that maybe there's an easier way to maybe show someone that you have interest in them, even if you are a female. I mean, is there any practical advice that you can give in that particular area for the female specifically?
Specifically for the female, I'm simple when it comes to these things. There's no harm, nothing wrong in her expressing verbally, I'm interested in you. As a matter of fact, like I said, it keeps intentions, straightforward, and it helps to keep things honest and pure. That
Right.
nothing wrong with that.
Right. I mean, as a guy, I mean, of course I'm married now, but I wouldn't see anything wrong if my wife, told me prior to us being married that, hey, I have an interest in you, right? In fact, that probably would
Right.
have taken some of the weight off my shoulders, because I'm like, I know I'm interested in you, but I don't know if the feeling's mutual, right?
Right.
So
You're
yeah, I
right,
think
right.
it's that simple, right? You can just go up, even if you are the female, individual in the situation, like you can go up and tell this guy, hey, listen, I have interest in you, and see where it goes from there. But it's interesting when you talk about the difference between dating and courtship. Right now, and on Wednesday nights, we're discussing the book entitled "Engage: Rethinking How We Walk Down the Aisle." The authors gave a very unique perspective when it comes to dating versus courtship. They alluded to the history of dating and how that dating sort of evolved from prostitution and these men and women hooking up, and only for sexual relations, right? They're not hooking up to marry or anything like that, but
That's right.
that was the idea behind dating in the previous years. But then now
That's right.
courtship, as you stated, and I love the way you said, it's involved, it's straightforward, it's open, and it's with limited intimacy. Um, Oftentimes courtship involves the whole family, both families,
That's right.
really. The
That's right.
families come together and they get to know one another through these two individuals who have that mutual interest in each other. And so again, I just think, from my perspective, man, I wholeheartedly choose courtship over the dating, especially given the previous idea of dating. But nevertheless, you don't necessarily have to do those things. But I just think that idea of courtship may suit us a little bit better, especially in my generation specifically. So, but as I stated
Absolutely.
before, obviously feelings are involved when you think about this, and many people they're blinded by their feelings. They can't think straight. All of a sudden, they lose their ability to reason. And I mean, what do you think about that? Obviously, we need to define feelings, right? And does feelings influence facts or vice versa? I know they can, but I guess the better question would be, how should young people respond to their feelings?
Man, I'd say, well, feelings, they stem from our emotion. I would say feelings um, they are very important, but feelings alone can be dangerous. You asked if feelings alter facts. Let me put it to you this way. You know, I can feel that the sky is green. It does not change the fact that it is blue. I
Right.
can feel that the definition of marriage as has been revealed to us in the Bible is outdated. I can feel that way all at once. It does not change the fact that the definition that has been revealed as far as it pertains to marriage is perfect.
Right.
Uh, that should not change. But if you turn that coin over, facts do influence our feelings. Matter of fact, as a matter of fact, they should.
Right.
Let's say I am a single guy and I'm choosing to take interest in a young lady, and things are great. Starting to feel good, about this situation. And she hits me with some information. She says, about 15 years ago, I killed a man. I mean, yeah. So you look at your look at look at your
Yeah, we got to talk
face.
about that, boy.
Hey, I'm telling you, and I'm not saying that's gonna tear down everything, but I mean, immediately receiving that information,
That's a red flag.
it gonna change some emotions there. If I'm reasoning correct.
Right.
So yes, facts can alter those feelings, but as far as how should young people deal with their feelings? I would tell them this: listen, understand feelings are very real. I would never tell you to deny your feelings. I just say couple those feelings with some kind of reason. That's when they are most successful. Um, our emotion, man, I tell you, they are all over the place. Um, One of my instructors and your instructors at the Memphis School of Preaching, Brother Keith Mosier, he'd always say, "Don't you know, gospel preachers they quit every Monday?" And I always laughed at that, just thinking that was funny. Oh yeah, that's just some joke. And until I got out there and became a preacher, and I had a full-time work. Man, I understand why he said preachers quit. Every Monday. They quit every Monday, but you talk to that preacher maybe, Wednesday after midweek Bible study. And you talk to him after he's able to proclaim the word of God and fellowship with the saints. Those emotions are going to be completely different. So I say also understand that about emotions. They are everywhere. You're going to experience a full array of emotions, but try your best to master them, to hone them, and couple them, with reason.
Right. It's interesting that when you think about emotions, and especially with the idea of them being all over the place, man, for emerging adults especially, they're bombarded with this with the change of hormones and things of that nature. And so the sexual feeling and desire and stuff like that is very real for them. And it becomes very prevalent in life, especially at that particular moment. And so when you think about feelings, especially when it as it relates to sexually, there are many young adults who are struggling with their sexuality. And it's because of the feelings that they have, right? Many don't feel necessarily that they are to sort of, I guess, like the people that other people would think they should like. Because they are a boy, they should like a girl, or because they're a girl, they should like a boy. Many have feelings towards the same sex, and they even argue, I can't help the way I feel, right? And I'm going to be miserable if I don't act on the way that I feel. We
Hmm.
obviously just discussed that feelings shouldn't, infringe upon facts, but and vice versa, facts should definitely influence your feelings. And so when thinking about that area of feelings, um, I guess first, what is sexuality, right? I mean, we got to define terms, right? So what is
Right.
sexuality? But then again, how does sexuality affect young people?
Sexuality is very broad, and it's ever changing. But I would say in its simplest form, it's the way one expresses themselves sexually. Um, as a matter of fact, I added in with the desire to express that. Um, Boy, are young people faced with it today. As you alluded to, adapting bodies, hormones, other feelings make young adults seek various avenues of expressing themselves sexually. Not to mention, you got the world, the influence of the world pulling at them. Um, Not to go completely back in our conversation, but you think about some of the dating that takes place. Like you
Mhm.
said, some people simply date only to hook up to be able to express themselves um, sexually. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of females. I'd say more so than men who use that as a standard to measure whether somebody likes it.
Right.
Are you expressing yourself with me sexually or not? And just think about the place we have fallen to for that to be the norm, right?
Exactly.
If you are not seeking to express yourself sexually with such a one, I can't tell if you truly are interested.
Right.
That's another discussion in and of itself for another day. Um, those desires are there. I would say sexuality, it's influenced by a wide array of things. I alluded to those who are seeking to express themselves sexually with those that they should not be expressing themselves to. I would just say it this way: if we're being honest with ourselves, um, we'd have to admit again that there are a lot of things that influence and determine a person's sexuality, that going into their sexual orientation over time. And so I would put it this way: um, the Corinthians, in their defense, they tried to argue with Paul, basically saying that bellies for meats, meats for the belly. So basically, God set this in motion. It's the body's natural desire. So as the body desire or the stomach desires food, so does the body desire and crave for this sexual expression. Okay, and there's truth value to that in that our flesh does have that. It does have those desires, but we must remember that the spirit has revealed the proper way for us to go about expressing those desires. Of course, that is the bond of marriage, and we understand who's qualified to be married, man
Right.
and woman. For those who have been influenced in such a way and have come to that conclusion, hey, listen, I have this feeling towards the same sex. Respectfully, I just say a feeling to engage in something wrong does not give one the right to commit that wrong act.
Right.
I'd say it that way. Um, I could feel that I wanted to do something, let me just say heinous, maybe that involved, murdering someone. I guarantee you in the court of law, that's not going to get me off the hook. That
No.
won't pardon me. If I say, well, I felt I had this, this surge that that's what I should have done. I should have went and murdered this person. Oh, they might say I'm crazy,
Hmm.
but I guarantee you I won't be pardoned.
Exactly.
So, um,
No, and it's interesting that you even say that because in colleges and even medical professionals now are sort of they're telling children, and the age is getting younger and younger, that
yes,
hey, listen, it's okay to feel the way that you feel. It's okay for you to change your sex. It's okay for you to get these hormone shots and stuff like that. We're talking
yes,
kids, we're talking kids, who
yes,
are younger than 11, right? We're
right.
babies essentially, being told by medical doctors that it's okay for them to change their sex if they want to. I find it quite interesting that they don't tell the same little kid who wants to be Hulk, that it's okay for you to be Hulk. It's okay for you to get these hormone shots
Right,
to be
right,
the Hulk,
right,
right?
right, right.
But it's okay
Right.
for you to take these hormone shots to change
That's
it to
right.
the opposite sex. They don't tell the same kid who wants to be like their pet dog that their mom and dad have at home, right? They imitate the dog on everything that it does, but it's not okay for them to be changed over into a dog, right? So I just find, I mean, I see this great contradiction in all of it. Again, not
Right.
trying to say, and I know neither one of us are saying that the feelings that these emerging adults have aren't real. They're very real, right?
Right.
Which is why they should be met with concrete answers, with very practical
That's
answers.
right.
And so, again, I mean, we could discuss this all day because it's a very prevalent issue now.
Right.
But just one thing that I thought about quickly while you were talking in regards to sexuality, I know that when talking to people who were born biologically a man or a woman, and now they are, you know, ascribing to be something that's contrary to their biological sex, they often say this: well, I know God is not going to deter me from living the life that I feel that I should live. What kind of God is going to hinder me or restrict me from, you know, acting on the feelings that I have, right? My life is going to be miserable. I'm not going to be able to have fun if I live up to the standards of people. Well, first of all, no one, not even Christians, no one is saying that if you don't, as a female, if you don't want to be married to a man, don't get married to the man, right? But at the same time, I'm not going to encourage you to act on your feelings to be married to a woman. But I am saying you don't have to be married to a man to go to heaven. You don't have to, right? It's okay to have those feelings. Again, they are real, but to act on them is a totally different story. A
Right.
pedophile, people who are pedophiles,
Absolutely.
they are
Absolutely.
they're trying right now to get some type of legislation passed to say that, listen, these feelings are real. They're valid. They're valid enough
Mhm.
for it to be passed into legislation for a pedophile, right? And
Right.
I'm like, well, no one right now is going for that. Why? Because they see it as some criminal activity, right? I mean, I just think the same perspective or same analysis given to them should be given to the
Right.
whole spectrum. So, but yeah, man, thank you for that. I know again that we could talk about sexuality all day, but another thing that this boils down to as we prepare to close, young people are facing. So we're about to call another audible, right? We're being faced
Omaha. Omaha.
with decisions that people don't, and by people, emerging adults, they don't know how to decide, right? They don't know how to navigate through society, and you know, especially when faced with certain situations, because as one neuroscientist stated, the brain or the prefrontal cortex of the brain in emerging adults, first of all, haven't fully developed. She described it as, you know, a person. She described it as this individual who is all gas and no brakes. Okay, so they're quick to act, right, and that's the gas part. But when it comes down to making the critical decision about the action on which they had just now engaged, they don't know when to stop because they have weak brakes, and that's the part of the prefrontal cortex that is weak. It hasn't fully developed yet. And so when we think about critical thinking, right, it's a skill that I think is necessary in life, and it's a skill that I believe that a lot of emerging adults try to acquire, try to obtain, but it's difficult to obtain. So I mean, what is critical thinking, and what does critical thinking look like?
Man, it has a definition. That term is broad. Matter of fact, if one Google's critical thinking, you're going to come away with a lot of different answers.
Yep.
So I put it this way: critical thinking is the ability to, I would say, make a proper decision, not just make a decision, but make the proper decision in a crunch. Um, how does one do that? I think it begins with one being objective with themselves, uh, asking why I should or should not do a particular thing. Just talking about those breaks, those weak breaks. What's going to help us to develop those good breaks? I'd say, listen, if you can, try to find somebody that can impart wisdom to you, to help you with those things, so you can have something to reflect upon when faced in those situations. And if you don't mind, I give you a football analogy. We were talking about this a moment ago.
Hey, sport
And
podcast.
playing free safety, you are forced to think critically all the time. Things are coming at you so fast. And really, as a safety, you have to ask yourself, what am I willing to give up? What am I willing to give up? Everybody knows if you want to throw a safety off their game, if you want to attack them, send multiple wide receivers in the zone. And you pray, you hope that he bites on the wrong one. What makes a safety bite in the wrong direction? Having bad breaks. Being ready to pounce on something like you said and hit the gas, and that's what the offense is preying on. I'm betting that he's going to bite down on a route that he shouldn't. Send something behind him. So I'd say it really comes down to really Daniel trying to be objective, one trying to be objective with themselves and asking, what is this particular situation going to cost? That's vital. That is key in critical thinking. Sometimes you have a longer amount of time to do that. But I would say the ingredients.
Absolutely right. I mean, as emerging adults, you have a lot of decisions to make that are coming at you rather quickly. Right,
Yeah.
you're going through puberty, so you have to decide whether you're going to remain faithful to God and restrict yourself from giving to that temptation, or I mean, you're going to give into it, right? You also, I got married in those critical years that Dr. James Dobson alluded to, between 16 and 26. That was a critical decision that I had to make, right? Obviously, premarital counseling and things of that nature help with that decision, but again, it involves a lot of thinking critically on my part. So
Right.
again, even with classes and starting a family, finances, all of those things involve critical reasoning or critical thinking skills that are valuable in such cases. So as we prepare to close, man, here's one question that just I guess it's something that most people don't think you can come back from. They don't think that you can conquer this particular issue. And you alluded to football, and I'm just going to say this: sometimes the quarterback doesn't see the defense. He doesn't read it properly. And so now he gets this onslaught of defenders in his face. And man, he's pulverized to the ground. And maybe he's afraid to get back up, or maybe he just feels like a complete idiot because he didn't properly read the defense. And sometimes that happens. That happens to the best, right? I mean, the GOAT, Tom Brady, just he got sacked by Aaron, I think his name Donald for the Los Angeles Rams, and I remember him saying to him, like, "Man, you're a big guy." He said, "I made a mistake that time. You're not going to get me again." But the idea is this: like, sometimes you just can't prepare for the onslaught of defenders that are going to be in your face. As that relates to young people, um, you know, it, they're going to face crisis in life. That's inevitable. That's going to happen. But is it possible to prepare for it to a certain extent? And if it is possible, what are some practical ways young people can stabilize themselves for such an onslaught?
So, like you just alluded to a moment ago, this perfect existence here, in life where nothing ever goes wrong, that doesn't exist. And we actually talked about emerging adults. I want to say some months ago, and I told you the first thing I thought about when you gave me the topic, I could not help but think about that football field and the stadium and the different levels. And I alluded to the offense being those people who are adults already, they're on the field, and then you have those players who are on the sideline, so patiently waiting for their number to be called. Those are the emerging adults, right? And they have a certain viewpoint, they have a certain perspective from that sideline. But man, they have their number called, you get in, and all of a sudden, the game looks different. It's easy to be critical over here or to say I see one thing on the sideline, but once you get in the game of play, it's a totally different thing. So you're gonna get hit. I'll just put it that way. There are some things in life that are going to hit you. Those things aren't necessarily bad. You can use those as an opportunity to grow, as an opportunity to maturate. But to best prepare for certain crises in life, I think it goes back to something that I mentioned a moment ago. Do your best to obtain as much knowledge as you can. Find someone that you can draw some wisdom from. Because like I mentioned, there are a number of things that are going to hit you. If you can be prepared by having someone who's been where you're trapped. And I would say that's the most difficult part about being an emerging adult or being a teenager. You're right there in the middle. Somehow, you know you're smarter than the kid, but I don't know how teenagers think they have learned more than somebody that's lived 80, 85 years. It blows my mind.
Right.
You know, all of a sudden you have learned in 16, 17 years what this person has yet to learn in 85. I'm like, really? Really? Wow. Take advantage of some of these individuals who are a little bit older. Here, they're like history books waiting to be read. You can learn a lot. I think that is one of the most effective ways to prepare for certain crises in life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, psychotherapy therapists are getting away from that come to my office, sit on the couch style of therapy,
Mhm,
because they're
mhm,
realizing that for emerging adults, for young people, that's not working. Specifically for the males, that's not working.
mhm,
Right? They want to see you in action. They don't want to just be spoken to. One thing I guess I can give a personal illustration. One thing that I've always appreciated about you and our friendship and relationship is that you weren't afraid to show me at times that you weren't Superman. You weren't afraid to show me that, hey, listen, I'm human. This is what I'm struggling with. This is what I have struggled with. This is how I handled that. And you didn't necessarily have to speak those words. You showed it in your actions. And I just think for young people, that's especially important today because you get to walk through life with someone who's already been down that path. And so when a pitfall or pothole come up, you know, that person can say, hey, watch out for this. Here's why. Here's what happened to me. Here's what I did. Here's what you don't need to do.
mhm,
Uh, the illustration that I think about, especially in this regard, is when I think about Kobe Bryant. I know we talked about that coming into this episode. Kobe Bryant learned a lot from Michael Jordan, even though as individuals they had two different, you know, experiences in life,
mhm,
but he learned a lot.
mhm,
At one particular point in time, Kobe was so focused on being the best that basketball really, his joy for basketball, his joy for the game really started to evaporate. But after talking to Mike, you know, Michael Jordan gave him some advice, things what about things to do and things not to do, and it helped Kobe along his journey. In fact, to give him over 20 years in the league, which could have very
mhm,
well been shortened had he not talked to Michael Jordan. Another recent example in the NBA that I think about is Karl Anthony Towns. He just lost his father a few weeks ago,
mhm.
and
Right.
Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Greek freak, right? He talked to him and told him, you know, he comforted him like, hey man, listen, this is what I did when my father died. He lost his
Right.
dad back in 2017, I believe. And again, though the life experiences are different, we're similar in our humanity, man. We all feel,
Absolutely.
we all suffer,
Absolutely.
and so I can learn valuable lessons and receive valuable resources just from talking to older people, from talking to someone who's quote been there, done that, unquote. And so man, thank you for that, man. I think it's important for young people to realize that they have hope even when they get hit, because you're going to get hit, as you stated, but
Let me
learning
get
how to respond when you get hit. Respond by getting up. Denzel Washington told those on one point in time, he told those actors, I think I shared this in the previous episode. He said, hey man, all of you guys want to be famous, you want to be rich, you want to be seen on the big screen. He said, what happens when you face adversity? You gonna quit? You gonna fall?
Right.
Oh,
Right.
he said you gonna fall. Somebody gonna knock you down, but make sure you fall forward. Make sure you do like sprinters and track. Fall across the finish line. Don't fall behind it. And so, man,
That's right.
thank you so much for that, man. Sharing your practical knowledge, for being on the episode, and as we prepare to just head out, man, is there anything that you want to say? Any closing remarks?
Just alluding to the last question that you asked, it's funny when you're talking about getting hit, you know you're going to get hit. Believe it or not, man, that was one of my biggest fears when it came to football. Was actually that contact and being hit, you know, not knowing what that was like. And I remember a good friend of mine, and I hope he later listens to this episode. His name is Devin Taylor. It took Devin literally knocking my head off, okay, for me to get over this fear of getting hit. I mean, he hit me. I mean, the wind was knocked out of me. And I'm laying there. Everybody thinks, you know, I'm hurt. And I'm like, no, I'm there thinking to myself, well, it did hurt, okay?
Right.
But I'm down there thinking to myself, Was that the worst that could have happened? Now,
Mm.
can you get up, Ron? Yeah, you can get up. That's what helped me get over that fear of being hit. Now, later I would be injured in football, in which I needed somebody else to help me get up because I couldn't get up myself. but I would say in that instance, sometimes that experience can help us, man, with that crisis. But then like we were talking about, we go through things and we use those experiences to help others. And
Right.
So you think about what the church is called to be as a whole, brother, a family. It should never be the case that one can't be found.
Right.
In the Lord's church, to be that for someone else. At that final thought.
Absolutely, man. Well, Brother Ron, I appreciate you so much for being on today's episode. Thank you for accepting the invitation. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Hey, listen, thank you for having me. It's been an honor.
So what did I tell you? Good episode, right? Ron has always been on top of his game. I enjoyed this episode and I enjoyed his experiential wisdom that he shared with us, and I hope that you did as well. I'm confident that you did. And in fact, if you're one of those individuals who are facing some of the struggles that we mentioned, you're not alone. Some of those struggles, if not most of them, I still struggle with, and I'm still trying to navigate through our modern day society as a Christian, trying to implement the things of Christ into my life and to be that shining beacon of light to a dark world. So again, you're not alone. Stay in the fight and stay encouraged. Thank you so much for checking out this episode. Be sure to like, subscribe to the channel on YouTube, and also share this episode with other people and leave a review. This will help with the sharing of our content. Thank you so much for your support. This is Fourth Quarter Christianity.